Once a perfectly happy household, this family's life took a sinister turn with the arrival of one man. Misfortune began striking with terrifying frequency. First, the younger brother met a tragic end from an apparent electrocution accident. Then, the sister became the victim of a bizarre car crash. Though she miraculously survived, her ordeal wasn't over. Later, in what seemed like a freak accident, she fell onto a 10-centimeter steel nail that pierced her skull, leaving her permanently disabled. Behind these seemingly random tragedies lurked a cold, calculating killer. When finally apprehended, the criminal was still gloating over what he believed to be his perfectly executed crimes. On June 14, 2009, a hospital in Suzhou City, Jiangsu Province admitted a patient with severe head trauma. Initial examination revealed a wooden board embedded in the patient's temple, with blood covering her face, leaving her unconscious. When doctors performed a cranial CT scan, they made a shocking discovery. A 10-centimeter steel nail attached to the board had penetrated deep into her brain, damaging the brainstem. Her condition was critical. How could a healthy person end up with a steel nail driven into their skull? Seeking answers, doctors immediately questioned the victim's husband about the circumstances surrounding the injury. The patient's name was Zhong Jinfeng. Her husband, Jiang Lichuan, the man explaining the situation to doctors, provided the following account. According to Jiang Lichuan, he was taking an afternoon nap at home when he suddenly heard a loud thud from outside, followed by his wife's screams. He rushed to check and found her already on the ground, with a nail from a wooden board embedded in her head. Near where his wife fell, several pieces of watermelon rind were scattered on the floor. Seeing this, he concluded that she must have slipped on the watermelon rind and fallen, causing her head to land on a nearby mosquito-repellent incense holder with exposed nails. Zhong Jinfeng's parents, also waiting outside the operating room, were devastated upon hearing their son-in-law's account. They couldn't bear the thought of another accident befalling their child just 2 years earlier. They had already lost their son unexpectedly. Now must they again suffer the unbearable pain of elderly parents burying their young? Just as the elderly couple was immersed in grief, the doctor emerged from the operating room. He informed them the surgery was successful, then quietly shared startling news. During the procedure, they discovered that besides the deep nail wound, there was another shallow puncture mark, one that hadn't penetrated the scalp, located just 3 centimeters away from the main injury. The medical team concluded both wounds were likely inflicted intentionally, contradicting Jiang Lichuan's accidental fall story. Horrified by this revelation, the couple immediately called the police. The police promptly arrived at the scene to conduct their investigation. First, they examined the rented apartment shared by Zhong Jinfeng and Jiang Lichuan. The scene appeared consistent with Jiang's statement. There were scattered watermelon rinds on the ground outside, along with Zhong Jinfeng's bloodstains. Beyond these findings, the site showed no other abnormalities or any signs of a struggle. After completing the crime scene investigation, the police consulted Zhong Jinfeng's attending physician for more information. The doctor told the police that aside from the highly suspicious double nail wounds on Zhong's head, there was another abnormal finding. If a person falls normally, according to the laws of inertia, there should also be injury marks on the shoulders. However, Zhong Jinfeng had no other bruises or abrasions on her body apart from the nail wounds on her head. After hearing the doctor's statement, the police made a bold deduction. Zhong Jinfeng likely didn't fall accidentally, someone must have attempted to murder her. That shallow nail mark was probably left when the assailant failed to kill her on the first attempt. But who could have committed such a vicious act? The police's primary suspicion fell on Zhong Jinfeng's husband, Jiang Lichuan. As the only person present with Zhong during the incident, and the one who first brought his wife to the hospital, he naturally became the prime suspect in the case. However, upon seeing Jiang Lichuan's physical condition, the police had doubts. Jiang was paraplegic, confined to a wheelchair, with medical documentation certifying his temporary lower body mobility impairment. His daily life had depended entirely on Zhong Jinfeng's care. If Jiang had indeed harmed Zhong Jinfeng, he would have been left without anyone to care for his daily needs, giving him no rational motive for the crime. Most crucially, The human skull possesses considerable density. Driving a steel nail into it would require tremendous physical force, capability that Jiang, given his condition, clearly lacked. Based on these factors, the police officially eliminated him as a suspect. The police then turned their attention to another individual, Jiang Lichuan's younger brother, Jiang Chuanqiang. Jiang Chuanqiang was an unemployed idler who had been living with his brother and sister-in-law prior to the incident. However, according to his statement to police, he was at an internet cafe when the attack occurred. The police then obtained internet usage records and surveillance footage from the internet cafe owner, which corroborated Jiang Chuanqiang's account and confirmed he had no opportunity to commit the crime. Consequently, his suspicion was also ruled out. Ideally, the key witness for reconstructing the incident should have been the victim herself, Zhong Jinfeng. However, while she had survived the immediate life-threatening danger, the steel nail's penetration into her brainstem caused severe neurological damage, complete loss of coherent speech capacity, paralysis of right-side motor functions. These catastrophic injuries rendered her unable to provide any reliable account of the attack, leaving investigators without critical testimony. Just as the police were at a loss, a new development emerged. In the following days, Zhong Jinfeng's mother received a call from an insurance company inquiring about her daughter's condition. Only then did the elderly couple learn that Zhong had previously purchased an accidental injury insurance policy. The policy stipulated a 300,000 yuan payout in the event of her accidental death, with her husband Jiang Lichuan designated as the sole beneficiary. Zhong Jinfeng was young, healthy, and worked in no high-risk profession, so why would she purchase such an insurance policy? And why designate her husband Jiang Lichuan as the sole beneficiary? This new lead raised police suspicions. Following the trail, investigators uncovered several troubling details. Zhong Jinfeng and Jiang Lichuan had married in early April. By late April, just weeks into their marriage, Jiang purchased the insurance policy. 1 month later, the couple was involved in a car crash when Jiang, at the wheel, drove their van into a roadside harvester. The police reviewed the car accident records again. According to the crash scene analysis, Zhong Jinfeng, who was in the passenger seat, should have sustained more severe injuries. However, she was thrown from the vehicle and only suffered minor superficial wounds. On the other hand, Jiang Lichuan claimed nerve damage resulting in lower body paralysis and obtained a medical certificate to that effect. But the crash scene photos revealed the driver's compartment where Jiang was located only showed moderate deformation. Hospital examinations found no visible external injuries on Jiang's legs. Merely 10 days after this car accident, Zhong Jinfeng suffered another accident. Following this lead, investigators uncovered something even more suspicious. What happened to Zhong Jinfeng had previously occurred to her younger brother Zhong Jinlong. 2 years earlier, Zhong Jinlong had purchased the exact same type of insurance policy, with a coverage amount reaching 550,000 yuan. Notably, Zhong Jinlong's death occurred precisely within 1 month after the insurance policy took effect. Police investigators learned from the Zhong family that Zhong Jinlong had died from accidental electrocution years earlier. Jiang Lichuan had informed the family that the original insurance payout was only 50,000 yuan, but claimed that through his persistent efforts and pulling strings at all levels, he managed to secure them 550,000 yuan in compensation. Out of gratitude, the elderly couple gave Jiang 200,000 yuan from the insurance payout. The Zhong family experienced 3 separate incidents, and each time Jiang Lichuan stood to gain financially. Zhong Jinlong's death had already brought Jiang a substantial financial reward. Had Zhong Jinfeng actually died in the car accident, or in this recent fall incident, Jiang would have received yet another insurance payout. The pattern of these overly coincidental incidents bore clear signs of human manipulation, leading police to view Jiang Lichuan with even greater suspicion. But how could Jiang Lichuan, supposedly paralyzed in both legs, have committed these crimes? Puzzled by this question, the police began covertly monitoring Jiang. They soon discovered that Jiang, who had claimed to be in Beijing receiving treatment for his paralysis, had actually returned to his hometown of Lianyungang and temporarily disappeared. Fortunately, his phone remained on. Through phone tracking, police found he frequented an internet cafe. Upon reviewing the cafe's surveillance footage provided by the owner, officers were stunned by what they saw. There was Jiang Lichuan at the stairwell rising from his wheelchair, bounding up the steps with ease heading to the second-floor internet cafe. His movements were completely unimpaired, a stark contrast to his previous helpless condition. Armed with conclusive evidence proving Jiang Lichuan's physical capability to commit the crimes, police immediately arrested him. Confronted with irrefutable proof of his feigned paralysis, the cunning criminal voluntarily confessed. Not only was he responsible for Zhong Jinfeng's recent critical injuries, her brother Zhong Jinlong's accidental death years earlier had also been his doing. Zhong Jinfeng was born in 1989 in Suzhou, Jiangsu Province. Her younger brother Zhong Jinlong was 3 years her junior. In 2006, the 19-year-old Zhong went to Suzhou to work with friends. Without formal education, she found employment as a restaurant server. By chance, she met Jiang Lichuan at a colleague's birthday gathering, an encounter that would prove fateful. Jiang Lichuan, a native of Lianyungang, Jiangsu Province, was 5 years older than Zhong Jinfeng. After graduating from a technical college, he entered society with dreams of overnight wealth, hopping between jobs, including working as a maintenance electrician for a home appliance company. Yet despite years of struggle, he failed to achieve success. Hearing that insurance sales could be lucrative, he moved to Suzhou in 2005 and joined an insurance company as an agent. With his silver tongue and persuasive charm, Jiang set his sights on the innocent and beautiful Zhong Jinfeng, launching an intense courtship. Young, inexperienced, and new to society, Zhong was easily swayed by his sweet words, and the two quickly began a relationship. However, Zhong Jinfeng's parents had an unfavorable impression of Jiang Lichuan. They found him glib-tongued and shifty-eyed during conversations, hardly an honest man. When they learned their daughter was dating him, the elderly couple felt uneasy. Yet they couldn't dissuade Zhong Jinfeng, who was utterly immersed in what she believed to be true happiness. Around 2007, Zhong Jinlong came to Suzhou to stay with his sister and future brother-in-law. However, Zhong Jinlong idled about all day without seeking work. Compounding matters, Jiang Lichuan's insurance business was struggling at the time. Zhong Jinlong's arrival worsened the already strained finances of Jiang and Zhong Jinfeng. Gradually, Jiang grew resentful toward his brother-in-law. One day, Zhong Jinlong abruptly asked to borrow 3,000 yuan from Jiang. Bound by social courtesy, Jiang reluctantly lent the money despite his misgivings. When Jiang later saw that Zhong Jinlong had earned income but failed to repay him, he nursed a growing hatred. While outwardly silent, Jiang quietly began formulating a plan. First, under the pretext of boosting sales performance, Jiang persuaded Zhong Jinlong to purchase a 550,000 yuan accidental death insurance policy. Then, when Zhong went to work, Jiang, drawing on his past experience as an electrician, deliberately rewired the rice cooker's circuitry. The moment Zhong returned home and began washing rice to cook, he was fatally electrocuted. Heartbroken upon receiving the news in their hometown, the elderly Zhong couple rushed to Suzhou to handle their son's affairs. Seizing this opportunity, Jiang lied to them. "I used my connections to secure you 550,000 yuan in insurance compensation." Through this deception, he obtained 200,000 yuan of the payout for himself. Emboldened by his success but unsatisfied, Jiang Lichuan saw how easily the Zhong family had been deceived. Driven by insatiable greed, he resolved to replicate his scheme and began devising yet another sinister plan. After her brother's death, Zhong Jinfeng, concerned for her grieving parents, quit her job in Suzhou and accompanied them back to their hometown. 2 months later, Jiang Lichuan followed them to Suzhou. After securing housing and employment, he proposed to Zhong Jinfeng. However, her parents steadfastly opposed the marriage, distrusting Jiang's character, especially since their son had died just 2 months after living with him. Yet Zhong Jinfeng, thoroughly beguiled by Jiang's sweet words, was determined to marry him. When her parents refused to relent, she stole the household registration booklet from home and married Jiang. On April 29, 2009, Jiang Lichuan and Zhong Jinfeng held a grand wedding ceremony at a major hotel in Suzhou. With events having reached this point, The parents reluctantly accepted their daughter's marriage, though an unshakable sense of unease lingered in their hearts. Then, on June 4, 2009, less than 2 months after the wedding, the elderly couple's worst fears materialized. On that day, Jiang Lichuan took Zhong Jinfeng to view their prospective marital home as planned. En route, he staged a car crash, having premeditated the collision angle to ensure Zhong's certain death. Yet against all odds, Zhong survived with only minor injuries, while Jiang himself suffered leg paralysis. Initially, Jiang was consumed by despair, believing he'd spend his life in a wheelchair. Zhong Jinfeng immediately quit her job to care for her husband, fearing he might harm himself out of despair. She painstakingly prepared different meals for him every day, bought massage books to study, and gave him daily massages. Despite his wife's complete and selfless devotion, Jiang Lichuan showed no remorse. Not long after, when he realized sensation had returned to his legs, he chose to conceal the truth and continued pretending to be paralyzed from the waist down, because a new sinister plan had already taken root in his mind. On the afternoon of June 14, Jiang Lichuan deceived his wife into taking sleeping pills. After she fell into a deep drugged sleep, he stood up from his wheelchair and began arranging the crime scene. First, he moved his wife's body next to the mosquito-repellent incense stand. Then, he took a wooden board with long nails attached. Finally, using a hammer, he brutally drove the nails into her head with vicious force. Due to his inexperience, Jiang's first strike missed the mark, leaving that shallow nail impression. On the second attempt, he aimed for the more vulnerable temple region and succeeded. To stage the scene, he then scattered watermelon rinds around his wife's feet, fabricating the appearance of an accidental slip. Only when certain of her impending death did he leisurely place the emergency call. The old parents were totally shocked after learning the truth. Their children all lost lives because of this demon. They couldn't wait to send him to hell, so did the police. However, as a cunning criminal, how could he be found so easily? On November 19, 2009, in the courtroom where this murder for insurance case was being tried, Jiang Lichuan stood before the solemn court, yet wore a scornful smirk on his face. Exploiting the lack of concrete evidence, he brazenly retracted his confession in court, shamelessly claiming that the deaths and injuries of the Zhong siblings had nothing to do with him. He even arrogantly taunted, "Back when I killed Zhong Jinlong in Suzhou, neither the Suzhou police nor the insurance investigators could find enough evidence to convict me. Do you really think the Suzhou police are any better?" At the time, the police were unable to provide conclusive evidence, and there was no testimony from the victim, Zhong Jinfeng. Moreover, Zhong Jinlong's death 2 years prior had already been ruled as accidental electrocution, under the principle of innocent until proven guilty. Both the police and the judge found themselves powerless against him. With no other choice, the judge had no option but to postpone the verdict in this case. In the courtroom, the elderly Zhong couple clenched their teeth in fury, their hatred for Jiang Lichuan so intense they wished they could tear him apart limb by limb. Yet reason held them back. They did not act on their rage. Wang Jilan, Zhong Jinfeng's mother, was resolute. Having already lost her son, she vowed to sell everything she had if it meant saving her only surviving daughter. She began teaching Zhong Jinfeng to speak again word by word, just as she had when her daughter was first born. Through the relentless care of the Zhong family and the hospital staff, along with the support of countless compassionate individuals, a miracle seemed to unfold. Perhaps it was a mother's unwavering love that moved the heavens, for Zhong Jinfeng's condition began to improve. Slowly, she could answer questions about the case. Her mother asked, "How many pills did he give you?" Zhong Jinfeng held up 2 fingers. "What did he tell you then? Did he say they were anti-inflammatory pills?" Zhong Jinfeng nodded. Yet some skeptics accused the mother and daughter of colluding, claiming that Zhong Jinfeng, still mentally unclear, was only able to respond because of her mother's prolonged prompting. To uncover the truth, the police conducted an interrogation of Zhong Jinfeng. They discovered she could clearly comprehend their questions and respond appropriately, proving she was fully lucid. Her testimony would hold weight in court. On June 8, 2010, after nearly a year of legal stalemate, the case was reopened. The arrogant Jiang Lichuan had likely believed his evil deeds would remain forever locked in Zhong Jinfeng's damaged mind. Yet to his shock, Zhong Jinfeng appeared in court, wheeled in by her mother, and personally identified him as her attacker. This time, Jiang Lichuan had no more lies left to tell. In the end, the court delivered its verdict. Jiang Lichuan was sentenced to death for the crimes of intentional homicide and insurance fraud, with the punishments for multiple offenses combined. Upon hearing the sentence, Jiang Lichuan, escorted away by bailiffs, still wore a chilling, unnatural smirk on his face. As the saying goes, justice may be delayed, but it will never be denied. In 2013, Jiang Lichuan was executed, finally bringing his life of evil to an end. Yet the scars he inflicted upon the Zhong family could never be erased. Disturbingly, it was later revealed that he had also purchased accidental death insurance policies for his younger brother, Jiang Chuanqiang, and for Xiaoli, a lover he met while evading capture in Lianyungang. Had he not been brought to justice this time, he would likely have continued his crimes, sacrificing innocent lives for his own selfish gain. Fortunately, divine justice prevailed. Jiang Lichuan ultimately received the retribution he deserved. As for Zhong Jinfeng, who miraculously survived 2 near-fatal attacks, her improving health condition filled her with renewed hope for the future. No more evil stood in her way as she embarked on her pursuit of happiness. We firmly believe her future will be filled with brightness and promise. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this case, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow Case Diaries. There are plenty more cases coming your way. Got thoughts on today's story? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. See you in the next one.